Welcome back to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Witzenburg from Oneonta PD. He has 27 years experience in law enforcement. Wellness is a huge priority for him, and I'm really looking forward to having him on the show. So welcome, Chief Witzenburg. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, you have a really interesting background on how you got started in law enforcement, and I was hoping that you can share that with our listeners.
Yeah, well, Oneonta is a college town. There's two colleges here, SUNY, which is a state university of New York university, SUNY Oneonta and Hartwick College. And I chose to come up to SUNY Oneonta for the environmental biology program around 1994, 5. Um, and I spent the next 3 years in their environmental biology program thinking that I was going to go to work for the National Park System. And about the time I realized I was probably going to have to spend a bunch of time in Washington, D.C., I started looking at other career paths, and law enforcement had always been at the top of the heap. I had taken a bunch of police tests in the New York City metro area, Nassau County, Suffolk County, New York City, New York State Police. And I took the test here while I was working as a firefighter, as a call firefighter, which is like a part-time firefighter for the city of Oneonta. And I was called in March of 2000 or 1998 and was hired May 26th, 1998.
And I know we talked a little bit about, offline about how maybe some people in your life weren't supportive of some of the other decisions that you were maybe thinking about going into the military, and you kind of let them influence your decisions. And so once you started into this profession, you're like, never again, I'm going to advocate for myself and I'm going to make my own decisions. What did that look like for you? Because I think that anyone who's listening can relate to, allowing other people to influence the way that we live our lives.
So I think that really came up or actually around first Gulf War, um, 1991, 1991. I had wanted to join the Marine Corps,
Mm.
and I needed parental permission back in those days to sign up because I was under 18, and the track would have required me to get permission. And my parents really pushed back on that, and I always really kind of resented that, and maybe didn't place my intentions well, and I didn't do real well in school after that. I ended up kind of moving out of the house early and going to work for state parks and recreation because, like I said, I wanted to work in national parks. I thought state parks would be kind of a natural progression.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I let my parents really kind of get in my head with the military thing. And when the police department and that I think the call for duty is really, it touches people pretty deeply.
Yeah.
And having worked in a service like the Park Service gives you a greater sense of, when you have 30,000 people come in for a weekend or a weekend day for holiday, and you're there to help support that. You're there to help arrange the picnic tables and clean up the trash, and see that people have a really good time on a holiday weekend. You're part of something bigger than yourself, and I wanted more.
Yeah.
So after coming up here for college, I think I really started to drill down into what being part of law enforcement really was. And I think that anybody that lives in a civil society, uh, if they're not looking to their law enforcement as part of the fabric of what makes that society livable, uh, I think they're misdirected a bit.
Yeah. And I've never met anyone in law enforcement who didn't have that, deep drive to be in service of others and to help others and make the community better. So I love that you said that because I do think that you're right. The call to service is something that runs deep in everyone in law enforcement. And you kind of have to have that, I think, to get through a long career. You have to have that deeper reason why.
Yeah, and there's always there's the red light and siren fever part of that too, where I think we all get a bit intrigued by what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, if you look at society in general and a number of, police procedurals, fire department shows, and I think they all spark the public interest.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's any different for us. We just want to pull back the curtain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you ever see yourself being a chief? Was that something that you always strived for?
Uh, and no, I really only had two goals when I was coming up through the ranks, and that was the first one is I wanted the bad guys to say, "Uh oh, here he comes again." Right. And there was a moment in my career where I had a guy throw a pocket full of drugs into, like, he just saw me and dug in his pocket and threw his drugs into an alleyway. And I was like, I've arrived because all he
Goal
had to do was see
accomplished.
me. Right. That was the first thing. And then the other one was uh, for people that I worked with, I kind of wanted the job to seem like magic. Like, how did he do that? Because there's, in the minutia, there's things that people say, there's body language that people exhibit, there's things that if you look past what it is that you're looking at, you might pick up on and be able to turn that into articulable language to make the nexus,
Mm,
right? So that was always the focus for me, was making the job kind of seem like magic to other people. Um, and then of course uh, there's always beating defense attorneys at their own game on the stand. Like, there's just no better feeling for me than having my ducks in a row and knowing that what I'm going to say is what I'm going to say. The investigation that I conducted is going to result in a prosecution that's going to be successful, and we're going to end up with a consequence for somebody that needs to change their behavior. So that was always the chase, And then in 2007, I had the opportunity to become a detective. I had 9 years on the road at that point, and it was always like, wow, they kind of swing a big bat in the detective division, and they get big sentences for people that do major crimes. So that was the nexus, right? And in 2009, we had gone through a bit of unpleasantness at the police department, and um, I had an option. There was somebody behind me that I didn't want to work for.
mm,
So I had a choice. They were kind of next in line for the position. I had a choice. I either give up the detective position and take the promotion, or I end up working for this person, and I couldn't. It couldn't happen. So, sometimes you have to accept um, responsibility for certain things that happen out of your control. And that was one of those things. I thought that we would have been in a better place with me as a supervisor than as a detective, and I vacated the position and I took a supervisory position. Try to bolster the department and the people that I worked with that I cared a lot about, and wanted to see us do better. You
yeah.
know, so the first promotions, that's the tricky one, because the people that you don't want to work for, they don't go away. They keep striving for those positions as you move up. And I was kind of driven by someone that I didn't want to work for.
Mm,
It's a small agency, it's 25 people. And I've actually had conversations with some um, folks in agencies that, 50 or so, and they've made decisions for similar reasons.
yeah. I've heard this a couple times where, other chiefs have said like if I wanted to make change, I knew I had to promote.
Yeah,
And so it's this idea of like, if you want to make it better, if you want to create that change within the organization, sometimes you're the only one, that can do that. And so sometimes promotion is necessary. I also really respect the mentality that you had of like, when you said make it look like magic. To me, it's a mastery of the craft, right? If you are really, really good at what you do, people can't comprehend how you do it because they're like, whoa,
right.
like that, if you can make something look really easy, that means you've mastered it, right? And so it's this mastery of craft. And I think that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, sometimes we're in a rush to get there, and there's really no rushing mastery. There's a certain amount of time that has to be put into becoming that good at what you do. And all great things, I think, take more time than we want. And so it also is a testament to the work that was put in. That doesn't come easy. Even though it looks easy, it doesn't come easy. So I really respect that mentality of like, I didn't necessarily want to promote, but I wanted to be a master at what I did. And then the only reason why I really did promote is because I wanted to make a difference and I didn't want to work for other people who I thought would be, I don't want to say detrimental, but maybe not the best in that position. I didn't want to work for them.
Yeah, I'll certainly steer clear from anything disparaging, but I think at that time we just had a difference in how it is that we perceived the job and how to do it.
Sure.
And I just had a different idea in my head. So
What is maybe a piece of advice that you would give to someone who's younger in the career who, um, maybe does have the goal of promoting and becoming a chief one day? Are there any lessons that you've learned along the way, or anything that, maybe you found in the chief role that you didn't realize that maybe they can learn from?
I saw a good one today. You can dump a bucket of water on a rock and it does nothing, but a drip over time will carve a hole in the rock. Um, Consistency
Mm,
is the biggest thing. Making sure that you come in. Hey, like there's no, I can never ask an officer to come in and give 100% of themselves every single day. It's just not a realistic expectation. But if they come in and they do best effort day after day after day, that officer will develop into someone whose best effort on their worst day is probably better than most people's best effort on their best day.
sure.
So be patient, be consistent, show up and learn. I learn every day, and I still, I spent 17 years as a union rep, and I don't think that I've ever really changed my philosophy as police chief. It's servant leadership, and it's eating last and making sure that everybody gets what they need first. So I think that goes for officers in the public too. We're here for a service. We're not servants, but we provide a service, and I think that we need to do the best we can to deliver the best product day in and day out. And it's not about pay and benefits; it's about self-satisfaction and respect for who you are as a person, and that will translate to big wins when it comes to even family. I mean, I always say, becoming a father made me a better supervisor, made me a better father. So it's all cyclical. Just be patient and take your time and learn as much as you can
I
and
think
apply it. There's not you can learn a lot, but if you don't apply it, then it's not worth anything.
100%. I think that action is arguably the most important piece of it. What are you doing to implement the things that you're learning? I also think that that word consistency is so important for a lot of different things, and consistency takes effort. It doesn't rely on motivation. And I think that a lot of people are waiting sometimes for motivation to create consistency. And sometimes you got to be consistent even when you don't feel like it. And especially in the context of wellness, we're talking about wellness today, and, being consistent with your wellness routines, even if you don't feel motivated to do so. How important do you think it is, in the context of performance, that officers and employees are being consistent in prioritizing their physical and mental health?
My observations, as far as the reality of it, I don't think that they put themselves first enough. I think as police officers, we kind of look at our position as a position of sacrifice, and we give of ourselves to other people. And I think it translates also into our personal lives, and we feel many times we put in so much effort to family that we're not getting enough in return, or there's not enough give and take. I think that um, oftentimes we end up misunderstood, and that creates other frictions. I was divorced early in my career, and not that that's uh, a fault. What it is I think, a sign of immaturity, um, and that's a bit of a lack of introspection,
Mm,
either before, during, or after the marriage, right? So I think being introspective is a huge part of that, and having the ability to be self-critical without being self-defeating
mm,
is a big part, right? Um, and learning upfront early that if you can't help yourself, you can help no one else, and it's just going to be a detriment to you as an individual. So we can all, like I kind of said before, I see officers when they come in, they all want to make a big splash and make a name for themselves, and it's all well and good, and I lived it, and I did it, and I understand it. But I've also seen officers, drive themselves into health problems, pneumonia, constant illness, uh, too many sick days. Um, we can argue, is there alcohol use, substance abuse issues, not sleeping, a combination of everything? Yeah, a lot of times there is, but I think it all boils down to people not being introspective and self-critical enough, and not being consistent and taking care of themselves enough, and not prioritizing themselves over the job. An alluring job, and you can get lost in it. And I caution people. It's happened. I still love the job. I've been almost over 27 years now. Um, it's not your life. You
mm.
have to make plans for other things.
Yeah, I really like that statement, be self-critical without being self-defeating. I think that oftentimes it is defeating if you feel like you're failing, right? If you're looking at yourself and being like, man, I'm not doing the best, I think that it's natural, or maybe it's common for us to be like, well, then that means that I'm failing or I suck, or, and so having that grace and giving yourself permission to say, hey, like maybe I'm not doing the best right now, but how can I improve? How can I take a look at what I'm doing, and how can I, find that dedication and consistency to grow or to improve my situation? And um,
I like to tell people that I'm the chief failure,
why?
because I've tried and failed at more things than most people have tried at. Right. So if you fail with grace, right, and then you pick up and you try another avenue, you may have success. And if that fails and you try another avenue, you may have success. And if that fails, so
Mhm.
there's always this hope that's driven me forward, that if I fail, I will just simply change direction, change my approach, change something in what it is that I'm doing to try to get success.
Have,
Right.
have you heard the expression failing forward?
Yeah, no, but I mean that's exactly what it is.
Mm.
It's not getting wrapped up in a failure. There's in Stoic philosophy is you have wins and losses, and they are both the same.
Yep. Yeah, it's
So
the
if
idea
you
of
can,
not getting too high and not getting too low, just trying to stay even keeled through all the ups and downs.
right, and looking at every challenge as an opportunity, and taking advantage of those. We have a lot of adversity, and in adversity and chaos, there's opportunity. When I was a patrol sergeant, there was nothing that I liked better than chaos, because you can tip chaos to work in your favor,
Mm,
right? And if you're good, it looks like magic.
yeah. Well, I think too, like, I think that there's a lot of different discussions on the definition of what resiliency is. But what you just described of like, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try to switch directions so that I can succeed and I'm gonna keep getting up. Like that's the resiliency, right? It's like no matter what happens, like I'm gonna keep getting up and I'm gonna keep pushing through. And I'm gonna find ways to grow and to learn. I think that that is a piece of what resiliency is.
It is, but pushing can become terminal. So recognizing that we all have uh, capacity limits,
Right.
um, I always like to say that we're like a bucket with a hole in the bottom,
Mm,
and the stress and the things that happen to us are a drip, right? And if we try to accelerate our lives to a certain degree, we just speed up the drips to a flow.
mm,
And where we run into trouble is when the pot overfills and we have no means of letting the things that are in the pot out, right? And that's where you end up with trouble. So you're right. I think pushing with the idea that you're going to learn and grow, but all the while looking at yourself and recognizing your limitations in time and energy and capacity, and having grace for yourself. Um, if you don't give yourself grace, then we're all our own worst critic. But I think we really just need to give ourselves grace.
I agree. I agree. I agree that there's a capacity. I do think that from what I've observed, a lot of law enforcement, like you said, don't think of themselves first and keep pushing themselves to the point of breaking. And we know that stress and cumulative stress can take a toll on your mental and physical health. How has this career impacted your personal wellness? Do you have any experience with that personally?
Oh yeah. Uh, yeah, at the beginning of my career, I don't think I was a super nice guy. Um, I think I had very high expectations, unrealistically high expectations for myself. And then I think worse than that, I would take and impart those expectations on other people.
Mm,
And then that's where you end up with like, oh, guy's a jerk, right?
yep.
Because you're short with people, you don't give them grace, and it costly. Yeah, that was a tough period for me. But again, that was a period of growth and introspection.
Yeah.
Well, like kind of a forced period of growth and introspection. There's a lot of thinking that can be done between when you have to drive 70 miles to see your kids.
Yep.
So you look at that, and it drives a thought process. So you could go either way, right? Could make you worse, could make you better. But I like to. So I can't remember who put it, but might have been Travis House actually. It's not necessarily post traumatic like stress disorder, but post traumatic growth,
Yep.
right? What will you do with the things that you see and the challenges that you face? Will you let them shrink you, or will you grow and learn from them?
And I think the beauty about that is that we all have those crossroad moments, right? We all have that thought process of, are we going to go this way and take more of that unhealthy, detrimental path, or are we going to choose to go this way and try to grow and learn from it? And I won't say that I've always taken the right path, but
None of
again,
us ever do.
again, it's like then when you hit another crossroads, it's like you're faced with that decision again. Okay, like here's another opportunity. Keep going this way, or do you want to change paths? And I think that sometimes you have to take the wrong path a few times to understand that it's the wrong path, and to choose a different one for yourself. And I
I
really
don't think
do,
there's any other way to gain perspective.
oh, 100%, 100%. And I think that like I truly do believe this, and maybe it's corny, I don't know, but I think that every life experience, it's almost like a brick paving the way to where we're going. And I feel like every experience I've had, whether it's positive or negative, has led me to where I am today. And without those perspectives and those experiences, I don't think that I would be in the position that I am now. I don't think I would have the same passion for wellness. I don't think that I would have the same empathy or perspective on things. So I think that and I'm not saying that it's fun to fail or to choose a wrong path for yourself, but I do in some ways have gratitude for that because I think it's allowed me to be who I am today.
Failure is never fun, um, but without, how do we gauge the the phenomenal things that happen to us? Uh, have different feelings. How do I say it? Like, if you have no appreciation for bad, how can you find the good in anything?
Hmm.
If everything that you ever had it was given to you without challenge, um, if you have any the slightest bit of adversity, all of a sudden now things go into a tailspin and you have no perspective of how you might get that back.
And I think that our perspectives are based on our preconditioning and our past experiences. And so you're exactly right. It's like everything that we've gone through gives us the perspective. And I know in 2012, you had a particular situation happen that gave you some perspective on life. I was hoping that maybe you can share what that was.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure what happened. It was either like climbing in and out of a dumpster at work or lifting up a guy at work who didn't want to go into a jail cell. But I hurt my back, and the next day my back went into spasm, and I couldn't get out of the car. So when we had gone to my sister-in-law's house, and I was driving the car, and I told my wife I couldn't get out. I have to go to the hospital. Um, so I drove myself to the hospital and limped out of the car. And at that time, it was like July or August of 2012, and we had like a 2 week old baby. Well, he's going to be is he 13 this year? He'll be 13 this year. And my 2 year old, we left at my sister in law's house, and I went into the hospital. And we just thought it was a regular back spasm. So like the typical battery, right? X-rays, and I was like, something is wrong. And I insisted. It was fortunate because my PA is somebody I knew from work and has a relationship with somebody I worked with for a long time. And they sent it off to an X-ray tech and said, look for something else. And it turns out they found a tumor on my kidney. Um, and back pain can be part of that, but I still think it was from an injury. And that was interesting because I know this person. I've known her well for years, and she came into my room after many many hours. I think we were there 8 hours by this point, with tears in her eyes, and she said, "You have cancer." What do you say to that? You know.
Yeah.
So long story short, they it was like a pimple really. They took it out through arthroscopic surgery. I haven't had a recurrence, but that point from when you have the diagnosis forces a realization. The cancer I had it's a silent, it's a quiet cancer. It doesn't when you become symptomatic, it's really kind of too late, and you're in bad shape because it goes from your kidney to your lungs to your brain, right? And we found it very early, which was totally serendipitous, right?
Mhm.
But that period between the diagnosis and when you find out that you have it, and then the surgery, and then finding out that you're clear and there's no cancer in the margins, and I had no chemo. Like this was very easy,
Yeah.
but there's still this blessing, and I think a lot of cancer survivors or people that even have recent diagnosis that are fighting it recognize is that it gives you the gift of real clarity.
Yeah. How do you think that, like, I think there's so much fear around death and the unknown. And I think it's the thing that we don't want to think about, like our mortality, and obviously you guys as a profession, you experience mortality within your career, but when you start to look at that internally of there's a real mortality to this, how do you
Yeah.
think that, go ahead.
So, my mortality has never really been the issue. The issue would be leaving my kids without a dad.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me. I'll
Yeah.
be dead. You know, it's that thought of what happens later. We all do it. I mean, the I had a sergeant at one point, great guy, and he said, if you ever really want to be any good at this job, you've got to look at it like you're already dead. And I think a lot of us recognize that we probably died 1,000 deaths, and maybe like Mark Twain said, I've had a lot of bad things happen to me, most of which never, or I've worried about a lot of things, and most of which never happened, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we all have so many close calls, so many times where things could have gone so much differently, you know. And as I get older, I'll be completely honest. Like I never, it was never a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be 52 and I'll be the chief of police." Like that was never something that really struck me. I never considered it. I never considered my own mortality. I just lived my life,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it was a real gift of clarity and recognizing that yeah, I'm not always going to be here for my family. So what's my legacy going to be? What am I going to leave behind for them? And as a cop, it's not like anybody's ever going to build me a monument. So a good name, right? And somebody that they can be proud of, knowing that they gave their best.
Yeah. Do you think that that experience changed the way that you show up every day and, how you show up for yourself, how you show up for your family, your organization? Do you think that
Yeah, so I felt bad for myself for like 10 minutes the next day. And um, when I say give myself grace, there was a real moment of introspection. And I've sat in a counselor's chair, but nothing was better for my head than the cancer diagnosis. It really took everything else and made it small,
yeah,
right? What am I really worried about?
yeah,
You're gonna die. We're all gonna die. I got news for you. The day you're born, you start dying. So I could walk out of here after the interview, and I could get run over by a bus. Whatever can happen. Yeah, I started showing up with a lot more gratitude for each day. And those, even in the moments where you have a guy pull a knife on you or whatever. There's just I think a clarity. Like, do I have to engage? Can I get in a car? Is there a way for me to tactically retreat? Do I have backup coming? What are my assets? What are my liabilities? These things are things that we all think about on a daily basis. But it's all part of the maturing process too. It's all part of recognizing, what your inputs and outputs have to be. Um, and I think that's really gotten much more um, fluid for me to make a determination as to whether or not I'm going to react. I almost never react to things emotionally,
yeah,
right? Um, it's work. We're going to have hiccups. We're going to have problems. I try to put every complaint and every mistake into the same lens of what would you have done when you had their time on, right? And then give them as much grace as I would give myself,
um,
right? So that's really changed a lot, I think.
I think that our hope is always that other people can learn from our experiences. I think I've had a lot of conversations with this idea of, I don't want other people to have to go through some of the same things. I want them to be able to learn from, some of my experiences and, have more longevity or have more grace or whatever that is. And my question to you is, what would you say to someone who maybe has the excuse of, well, I'm too busy, put that in quotes, I'm too busy, or I don't have the time to have a life outside of the job, to be there for my family, to take care of my wellness. What advice would you give to them?
Well, I think they really have to reconsider their life choices if they're just too busy for themselves. We give of ourselves to other people all the time. And this is a really common thing that we see in law enforcement. We're really good at solving other people's problems, but when you ask us to solve our own problems, we fall flat.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the human condition. We can all cite instances where we've given someone advice and we've been like, that's great advice. And then you turn around and don't follow it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'd see a doctor for that, and the, especially like in the gym, even, right? People get injured all the time. And, you hear like, oh, you should probably go get an MRI on that. The next day, the same guy's walking in with a limp, I'll be fine. You know, um, yeah, maybe you will, maybe you won't be fine. Um, but wouldn't you rather just spend some time? We all spend time training and honing our skills for the police job, but none of us came with a handbook. There's no policy and procedure manual for your home life and the things that we do at home. And I think that taking the time to adopt healthy routines and create a model for wellness for yourself is really important.
Yeah.
Diet, exercise, making time for your loved ones. It's all valuable, and you don't want to be. I remember my friends' parents never around. They were absent. They get home, they're angry. Some of them had substance abuse issues, and that's a terrible way to raise kids. Again, it goes back to that introspection, and I think everybody really needs to remember that our words and actions have direct impact on people on the street, but more importantly, at home.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I think that a lot of times it's easier said than done. I think you do have to have that perspective, but I'm hoping that there are people who are listening to this who are learning or maybe having that moment of introspection of like, oh, that's right. Like I do need to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. And my actions do matter. And so I appreciate you saying that. The last little bit I want to talk about is because I know organizationally you are really trying to create a culture of wellness, a safe space, within the walls of your organization where people want to be there, they feel supported, they feel like they have the resources to take care of themselves, because we know that you can't control the stress outside of the organization, but you can inside. And so I was hoping that you can give your perspective on how you're doing that, how you're addressing maybe stigma or negativity within the organization, and trying to create that space where employees feel supported in their wellness.
Well, I want to say the first part of that is trust. Uh, I've established a training program between the police academy and the field training program over the years with the help of senior staff and field training officers that I feel gives people the best possible start to this career that we can give them. And then after that, it's trusting that you've given them the tools to be able to do the job. And uh, I think paramount to that is encouraging them to to know when they don't know something and ask a question,
Mm.
right? So the level of trust has to be high on the street that they're going to do the job well. And then if they have a problem, then they need support, right? And that's where the station comes in. That's where They may not know exactly what it is that they have. They may have questions on things, right? But they come back. This is home. They're coming home to ask for guidance from the guardians, right? The people that are here to be able to support and assist them in moving forward with whatever it is that they happen to have, right? Um, and then, paying attention. I have again, I'm in a mid-sized agency. It's 20, we're authorized 28 sworn. Um, but I think a lot, there's not a lot of separation between me and my staff. So I hear about how they're functioning on a daily basis. I hear about the challenges that they may have. I hear about the strong points that they may have, the weak points that they may have. And I look for the inconsistencies in the stories and the incident reports and the things that may put up warning signs for me. And then it's a matter of going to their immediate supervisor or even a peer and saying, "Hey, is Bob okay? I've been seeing a couple of things. Maybe we have some more uses of force, or is everything going okay with him?" There was an incident where we had a railroad suicide. Could you do me a favor and just follow up and make sure that they're okay? Is everything going okay at home? Right? And making sure that I'm as engaged and involved with what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, that they are out on the street taking care of the business that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? They're my clients, they're my people, they're the people that I need to be successful. Without them, I am nothing.
Yeah.
So it's you know I have to support them in their day-to-day operations, and the way I do that is through very open lines of communication and looking for the inconsistencies, looking beyond that contact.
What I heard, and I'll kind of overview, is paying attention to what's going on, communicating with them, having that open line of communication, empowering them on the streets, and then supporting them at home. And I think that that word home has so much safety and love to that of saying like, hey, when you come home, we got you. We want what's best for you. So I absolutely love that. I think that everything you said is exactly what you would think of with like how can you create a supportive environment that allows people to grow and to thrive. And we talked a little bit offline about like this self-validation too of like knowing that you have a supportive environment around you, so that you feel empowered to do your job, and then having that validation of like, yes, I do a good job, and cultivating that.
Yeah, and of course, that was something I learned through a very negative work environment. Is that nobody's going to give me a pat on the back, so I have to really kind of look for the joy. We all have no joy days, but I have to look for the joy in what it is that I can find because you know I don't need accolades to want to come to work and do the job. I don't need like, oh, you're top cop. Who cares? There's lots of them. They're all over, you know. And then there's lots of slugs that get recognition too. And we've seen that happen in agencies that aren't really paying attention. Again, right? It's part of like really pay attention to what's going on because you'll have self promoters come through, and they can be dangerous because they like to dim light bulbs for other people, so theirs can shine brighter. They're a real cancer, and I think we spoke a little bit about that before. Negative behaviors have to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that negativity can spread quicker than positivity. And if you don't address it, it can become an issue. And I think even what you said of like learning to have gratitude, I think allows you as an individual, if there is negativity within an organization or within your day, within the community, to have that habit of positivity and gratitude within yourself so that you don't fall into that negative cycle. Because I think it is really easy to do that. I do think that it's louder.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that want to go elsewhere and do work in other places, and we're always competing, I think, with other law enforcement agencies for a market share of a limited number of people. And I always tell people the garage doors go up and down, and the front door goes in and out. Like, if you want to go, I'm not stopping you.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone here that doesn't want to be here. And, we've had a fairly high attrition rate. I mean, most of my career, it's been up 60%. Um, but I'm not going to work harder than anyone uh, that doesn't want to stay here to keep them.
Yeah.
If they want to stay here, then I'm all about it. I'll change. We've changed policies. We've changed. We have grooming policies that we've changed. We've had residence requirements that we've changed. There's only so much I can do as far as salary and benefits. That's all negotiable. But I can make this place a place where we can all be proud to say we work, that we all do exceptional work, that we have a vast uh, list of contacts that are willing to help us because of the work that we do, which is invaluable.
Mhm.
Um, and it really, I think we get a lot of things done. We network with social services and family services and other law enforcement agencies. And when you make a call and somebody's willing to drop everything for you to help you with your problem, man, that feels good.
Yeah. 100%. My final question for you before we wrap for the day is what words of wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known or something that's helped you along the way.
It's enormously gratifying to come to work and do work with people that are so willing to give of themselves for very little in return. A lot of days are going to be a struggle, but without the struggle, you'll never really understand how good life is, uh, and enjoy every day. And I'm sure there's been a lot of people that you've spoken to that would end with a very similar statement. But this is absolutely a front row seat to the greatest show on earth, and I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Thank you. I appreciate your time so much. I've loved this conversation and I really value you and your time, so I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. It was a good conversation.
Of course.